Hello, I've put together some slides with some feedback for C90 formative work that's been handed in recently. And so here we go. This is the briefing that you were working towards. It's a 500-word piece on the skills, knowledge and personal attributes of a professional, and then you've chosen which profession you would like to focus in on. When I read work, first thing I often do, and nearly always do, is look at the reference section. This gives me an idea of the sort of reading that students have been engaging with and the way that it's been presented, the quality and the quantity of underpinning evidence. So this is one good or short section of a good reference section that I've found. It's well presented. It's all journals. You don't have to use all journals, but we want to avoid using other sources that are not peer-reviewed. And if we're going to use textbooks, we have a mix of textbooks and journals. It's really well presented. You can see we've got italics here, we've got capital letters for the main words. We've got volume and number here, which is fantastic. We've got a date here. We've got a slight error here in that this should be commas, but we've got all the names. We've got and generally it's all in alphabetical order. It's got a space between each one, but it's got single line spacing. This is really easy to read, well presented, and good quality references. One issue that I draw your attention to is if you find work on Google Books, then by all means read it, engage with it, learn from it, cite it as well, but you're best off avoiding citing Google Books itself. And this was one I found which was not so hot in terms of choices. You can see a focus on websites. If you've got any doubt about the websites that you use, then I would recommend not using websites, apart from engaging with them, learning from them, helping you to understand complex concepts, but then go to the more academic literature in order to cite work of others. So try and avoid websites if you can. In terms of an introduction, I picked out a couple of good introductions here. I'll put this slide up as well. What we're looking for is this funnel approach, where we're looking for setting the scene to start with, then we're looking for some issues, and then we're looking for some focus on this piece of work. What I thought was good about these introductions is that they start off really nice and broad. They locate the area for the reader, kind of gives us an idea of what we're talking about. They've also made good use of, this second one particularly, has made good use of direct quotes, which I would caution the use of. But you can see this one, although it's slightly long, it's been integrated into a sentence. We've got a page number there for a direct quote. And it's not just hanging and left on its own as its own sentence, which is what we want to avoid. This top one is pretty good. We've got two references there back to back. You see separated by a semicolon, which is a good way of what's often called passing references. And if we start off in a broad context, lots of people have written about it, and we can name a couple of those and then move on. And in your own time, you can look at what's been written as well. In terms of the main body, picked out one example here, which is good practice. If we look at the density, get my pointer again. If we look at the density of references, we can see we've got a reference there, reference there, reference, reference. You see this again is a good use of a direct quote, which I'm not encouraging the use of, but if you're going to do it, we've got a phrase here, which is not the most academic phrase, but when it's put in quotation marks and attributed to someone who should know what they're talking about, then that's a fair use of a direct quote. It's also been integrated into the sentence and has been used to illustrate a point that the writer is trying to get across. What's good about this paragraph as well is that it sets the scene to start with. It's got its own mini introduction. It's got some references, some context. It explains the implications of this knowledge. It expands on that idea. It goes into a bit more depth. It fully explores the concept. There's room for more critical analysis in this paragraph. Yet it concludes well as well. This is all good practice in paragraph writing. Here's a second example of something which was good. Same sort of things really. Nice clear writing, good reference to an author, and puts the knowledge that you're relaying into context as well. I can't stress enough, each paragraph that you write, it needs to be focused, It needs to be saying something. It needs to clarify something. It needs to be quite clear what it's trying to say, and then it needs to explore an idea as well. Often we see confusion and conflation of ideas where there's the odd sentence put in that looks like it's about the same topic, but it's not really. So you need to really refine and focus in on your paragraphs to get better grades. In terms of conclusions, picked out a couple, rather short. It's only a 500-word piece, so they will be slightly shorter. The use of references and direct quotes in conclusions is interesting. You don't want to end on a direct quote or a reference of someone else that is not supporting your point. You really don't want to end the last sentence on one, but you can see there's a direct quote being used here, which makes sense. It's not being used as the last sentence, so it's not the writer's point. It is the writer's point that is being used to finish the piece of writing. Both of them, they don't simply summarize what's been said in the rest of the text, but they do conclude. They round up. They take a broader look at the content and try and summarize it for the reader and draw attention to the more important aspects. Again, more of the same. Ended with a reference there, which sometimes not be done so well, but this is clearly the text of the writer, so kind of get away with it in that sense. In terms of general points, I've split into 3 sections here. So if you are someone that got 40s or 50s, then the most likely thing, or the most important thing you need to work on, is your ability to reference, your ability to choose good sources to underpin your work, the ability to reference them correctly in the final section and use them and integrate them, synthesize them within the body of text. And also, there would have been many errors in the work as well. The phrasing, the approach to the academic style need work in general. If we go to the other end of the scale, there's 65s and plus 65 and aboves. In this instance, that work is really, really good for this stage of your academic development. Generally shows that you can write well, and you need to worry less about the development of your own writing, although there's room for improvement for all of us, and more about the content. In a short piece like this, it was a challenge to get in critical analysis, but it was possible, and most of you needed to get 1 or 2 more critical analytical points in. So if you got 65 on that piece, generally be happy with your writing and your ability to do academic work. When you come to new topics, focus in on and make sure you deliver those critically analytical points throughout your work. Make sure you explore in a paragraph, fully explore in depth some of those concepts. If you're in between, if you got a sort of higher 50 really, but really in this case a 60, 68, a lower sort of 60, then look at both ends. Make sure you're getting your referencing right. Make sure you're using good sources consistently. Cut out some of the weaker sources. I think working on the quality of your writing, if you were a 60 or thereabouts, that it would have been a piece of work that had some good concepts. It would have been underpinned by good work, but the final delivery of the written piece probably needed polishing off. So a couple more read-throughs and edits and focusing on some paragraphs. Generally, you're on the right track though. Whichever level you're in, there's help available. There's loads of books in the library. Come and speak to us and just work on what you need to do. I thought this link might be interesting for you. If you Google Marjon grade descriptors, then you'll find our generic grade descriptors that we use, and you can see, although your interpretation of reaching these and our interpretation of reaching these might differ somewhat, this is what we're working towards. So if you need further clarification, this is a good place to go to. And that's me done. Thank you, folks. Bye.